Hey everyone, welcome to our another tutorial. Today we have our second guest tutor, Shubho from Brace. Today he will teach us about how to create a Pokemon game using HTML CSS and JavaScript. He is a very talented web developer. He creates HTML CSS JavaScript, React, Vue.js tutorials for beginners. He has so many amazing projects in his channel. So don't forget to check out his channel for amazing projects like this. Now let's enjoy his project.
Hello guys, in this video I am going to show you how you can create a simple game using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So this is a very simplified Pokemon game. So you can use your arrow keys to control the player. So let me show you. So as you can see, I can press up arrow to go up, I can use the left arrow to go left, and I can go right and I can go down. And the only thing you do in this game is collect these Pokeballs. So every time you collect the balls, you get the sound and a new Pokeball gets generated in place of that ball. So we can again collect another ball. We can collect more. So this is a very simple version of a Pokemon game. And we are going to do everything from scratch. We won't be using any library or anything. So I hope you're excited for this. Now before we get started, I want to thank Fahimul Kabir from Tech2etc for inviting me to his channel. And I want to invite you guys to check out my channel called Angle Brace. This is a small channel, but I hope you'll find something interesting. So yeah, check it out after watching this video. Okay, let's get started. So to get started, I have a folder called assets. Inside that, I have all the images and the sound effects. So I'll leave the link to the finished project in the video description. So you'll be able to get the source code and all these files from that. Okay, so now I'm going to create an index.html. I'm going to create it outside the assets folder. So here I'm going to create index.html. We also need a style.css for styles, and finally a main.js. Okay, in our HTML, let's create a basic markup and link everything. So we are going to say exclamation mark and hit tab. Let me close the sidebar by hitting Ctrl B. And here we can use a link tag to link our CSS. So we are going to use link, and the href will be style.css. Let's do the same for our JavaScript. So we are going to say script source will be main.js. And we can open it up with our live server. So for that you need to have live server extension installed. If you don't have, simply go to this extension panel and search for live server. Here it is. You simply have to click on install and it will be installed. I have that installed, so I can right click and click on open with live server. And here is our page. We don't have anything at the moment, so let me bring it here and we can close this one. Okay, let's start by going to our style sheet. So here we are going to see our body. And our body will have a green background color. So let me open up my sidebar. Let me go to the assets folder. So here you'll see I have an image called land.png. So this is the image. We want this image as our background. So here we are going to say background image equals to URL. And here we are going to say assets / land.png. It should be assets like so. Save. And here now we have this land background. Okay, great. So after that we want our player. So let's see how we can create our player. So in our HTML, I'm going to create a div called player. So here is our div that has a class of player. So let me just copy the class, save it, and go to our style sheet. And let's target our player. Let's say our player will have a width of 80 pixels. So we're going to say width 80 pixel. And the height can be 100 pixels. So we're going to say height equals to 100 pixel. Now we can't see anything. So let's also say border. And the border can be, let's say, 2 pixel, solid, red. So you can see the size of our player, but we can't see our player. So for the player, again, we have some images. We have 4 images. Now if I open up one image, you'll see in one image we have 3 different position of our player. So as you can see, position of leg and hand is different. So what we are going to do is, initially we'll only show, for example, this part of our player. And when he is running, we can loop through all the images to create an effect of running. So we have an image for every side like so. Okay, so let's see how we can use it. So we're going to say background image. So background image. And the background image will be, again, we are going to say URL. And this time it will be assets / player. And we want the front image. So we're going to say player _ front. And here is our player. But we also need to say the size. So let's also say background size. And the background size for the x-axis, it will be 240 pixel, and for the y-axis or the width, this will be 100 pixel. If we do this, you'll see now we only have the first image. So let me open it back. Okay, so the width of our player is 80 pixel, but we have said the width of our background image should be 240 pixel, which is 3 times the width of our player. So initially we'll only see this much image, and this much will be hidden, or because that is out of the width of our player. So that's why we can see these two, we can only see these. But here, if we were to say background position, so background dash position, and if we were to say negative 80 pixel and 0, as you can see, now we get the middle image. And if we were to say 160 pixel, we get the very right image. So by changing the background position, we'll be able to loop through all our images, and that is what we're going to do to animate. So for testing purpose, let's also give it an animation. So we're going to say animation, and the duration can be, let's say, 0.2 second, and the name of it can be, let's say, walk, and it will be linear. So let's create that animation now. So here we're going to say add keyframes. We called it walk. So from 0% to 32%, let's make it 0%, it should be 32. So from 0 to 32%, the background position will be 0 0, and from 33 to 65%, so 33 to 65%, the background position will be negative 80 pixel 0, and from 66 to 100%, the background position will be negative 160 pixel and 0. Save it, and as you can see, we got a little bit of running animation, but it stopped. So we can also say infinite, save, and now we're getting this running illusion or running image. So by default, we won't be having any animation, so let me cut it. So our player will only have the animation when it also has a class of active. So we can say active. Only in that case we'll have this animation. Now this active class will be added and removed using our JavaScript. So now we can basically remove this border, we don't need it anymore. Save, and here is our player. Now we also want some bush, so let's create a div with a class of bush, and let's style it in our CSS also. So let's go to our CSS, let's go here, let's target bush, and let's say the bush will have a width. So we're going to say width of 40 pixel and a height of 50 pixel. So we can say 40 pixel, 50 pixel, and the background image will be our bush.png, which is this image here. So we are saying assets / bush.png, and we can just say the background size will be 100%, 100%. So 100%, 100%, save. And here is our bush. Actually, let's say the width will be 50 pixel and the height will be 40 pixel. I switched it, so now it is looking much better. And our player bush, everything will have a position of fixed. So we are going to say position of fixed, like so. Let me just copy this, Ctrl C, and we can paste it here also, Ctrl V. So now the bush is over our player, we don't want that. So we are also going to say our bush will have a z index of -1, and for our player we can say the z index can be something high like 999, so that way our player will always be above the bush. Now we don't want just one bush, we want to create a lot of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this, we don't want it in our HTML. We're going to create our bushes using JavaScript. So here I'm going to create a function called init, and this init function will initialize our game. So here one thing we are going to do is call a create bush function, create bushes. Now we have to create this function, this does not exist. So let me just copy the name and let's create the function. Let's create it here. So we can say function create bushes, and let's also create a constant. So let's go here and let's say const num underscore bushes. So basically how many bushes we want to generate. So let's say we want to generate like 40 bushes. Okay, so here we are going to use a for loop. So we're going to say for, and here we can say let I equals to 0, I is less than number of bushes, I plus plus. So here we have to create a div. So we're going to say const div equals to document.create element. So let me close the sidebar once again. So document.create element div. So we are virtually creating a div. Then we're going to say div.classlist.add. So we're adding the bush class to our div, And finally we can say bush.style.left equals to math.random times 100%. So the style.left can be any number between 0 to 100%, and we're going to do the same for our style top. So bush.style.top equals to math.random times 100%. And finally we can say document.body.appendChild div. So we're adding the div to our document or our body, and we have to call the init function also. So we're going to say init save. And now as you can see we have bushes, and every time we refresh the bushes are generated in random positions, so that's great. And the same way we have to place some pokeballs randomly also. So again for testing, let's create a div with the class of pokeball, and again we can copy this. So Ctrl C, let's go to our style sheet, let's go below the bush, and we can just copy this. So let me just copy all of this. So Ctrl C, and we can paste it, Ctrl V. So for this time the width can be, let's say, 30 pixel, the height can be, let's say, 30 pixel. Ctrl S, Ctrl B, and let's see, here is our pokeball.png. so we're in this image, so here we're going to say pokeball.png like so, save. So here is our pokeball, and so again instead of having it here, we're going to have it in our JavaScript. So Ctrl X, and we can delete this also, Ctrl S, Ctrl B. Let's go to our main.js, and again we can create another constant. So we're going to say const, we're going to say num underscore balls. Let's say we want 5 balls at a time. After creating bushes, we're going to say create balls, and let's create the function. So we're going to say function create balls, and again we're going to have a for loop inside that. So we're going to say for, we're going to say let I equals to 0, I is less than num balls, I plus plus. Again we're going to create a div. So we're going to say const div equals to document.createElement div. We're going to say div.stylelist.add. We're adding the pokeball class here, so because in CSS we called it pokeball. So let me just copy the class, Ctrl C. We can go here, paste it, Ctrl V, and again we're setting random x and y position or top and left position, and then we're adding it to our body by saying document.body.appendChild div. So if we were to save it, now as you can see we also have 5 pokeballs placed randomly. If I refresh, as you can see the position of everything changes, but we still can't move our player. So let's do that. So here we can say const player equals to document.querySelector. So document.querySelector.player, because our player has a class of player, so we're targeting our player. Okay, now we want to move our player whenever we press our arrow key, but before that we have some setup codes to do. So for example, we're going to say const player underscore pause for player position equals to, the position can be, let's say, the x can be, let's say, let's use the parseInt function, that way we'll get a whole number. So parseInt, inside that we can say math.random. Actually instead of random number, let's try to position it in middle somewhere by default. So we can say window.innerWidth. So window.innerWidth divided by 2. And for the y, so let's say parseInt window.innerHeight by 2. So this will roughly be in the center, but not exactly center, but should be good enough. Still our player is here, so we have to do something. So we're also going to create a function called run. So function run, and this will be our game loop. So here we are going to say player.style.left equal to playerPause.x, and here we are going to use pixel. Now we are using pixel instead of %. And let's do the same for our player position top, save it, and again we have to call the run function here also. So we're going to say run. Okay, this should be window.innerWidth, not /, so we misspelled. So window.innerWidth, window.innerHeight. So now our player is roughly in the center. Now we want this run function to be called again and again. So how we can do that? So we are going to use the request animation frame function. So we can say request animation frame, and we are going to call the run function here. We are going to pass the run function here like so. So if we do this, our run function will be called again and again. So for example, if we were to add a console log here, so console.log, we can say ran, save, and open up our console. Oops, not inspect but console. As you can see, this ran is being console logged again and again. So our run function is being called over and over. So when we use the request animation frame, this run function will be called again and again. Okay, so our player is not moving. We also want our player to move. So let's see how we can do that. So for that we are going to create another object. So we're going to say const player underscore vel for player velocity. So player underscore vel for player velocity or speed basically. So the x will be 0, y will be 0 initially, And in our run function, before setting this position, we're also going to say player underscore position dot x plus equals to player velocity x, and again player position y plus equals to player velocity y. If we do this, nothing will happen. That is because the both x and y speed of our player is 0 by default. But now if we were to add 1 as its speed, as you can see the player is moving on the x-axis. If we made it -1, it is moving on the other x-axis or in the left side. So make it 0. And again we can do the same for our y also. So if our y is 1, it is going down, not up. But we want when our y speed is positive something, it should go up but not down. So for that, instead of saying style.top, so let's see why is that. Instead of saying style.top, we can say style.bottom. So now our player is going up, not down. And if it was -1, it is going down. So by changing the velocity, we'll be able to control our player's running position or running direction. So let's see how we can do that. So for that, we are going to use the key down event. So let's do this here. So we can say window dot add event listener. We are going to listen for the key down event. So if we were to say alert e.key, so e.key will give us the key we press. So as you can see, if I press H, it says H. If I press W, it says W. If I press up arrow, it says arrow up. If we press right arrow, it says arrow right. So here, now we can say if e.key equals to arrow up, so arrow up like so. In that case, we can say our player underscore vel, so player velocity dot y equals to 1, and we can just copy this. So Control C, we're going to say if it is arrow down, it should be down. In that case, y will be -1, and then we can do the same for our arrow left and right. So if it is arrow left, we are going to say player velocity dot x equals to -1, and if it is right arrow, in that case we are going to say player velocity dot x equals to 1. Save it and let's try to press any key. So if I press up arrow, as you can see, it goes up. If I press right arrow, it goes right and up. If I press down arrow, it goes down and left. If I press right arrow, it is going down and left, down and right, sorry. So whenever we release our key, in that case our velocity should be set to 0. So let's do that. So we're going to say when we press our release our arrow, which is the key up event, not key down. So the key down is when we press any key, and key up is when we release a key. Whenever we release a key, we are going to run this function. So let's say function, let me scroll up a bit. So here we are simply going to say the velocity will be 0 0. So save it. And now if I were to say up, it goes up. If we do this, it goes left. If we do this, it goes down. If we do right arrow, it goes right. So this is working. But again, this is not looking that good. So just moving the position, this looks very unnatural. We are running animation. So here we can also say our player.classList. So player.classList.add, and the class list will be active because when our player has a class of active, it has the animation. And when we release our key, we can remove the class. So let me just paste it, and instead of class.add, it will be removed. Save it. So now if we press up arrow, as you can see, we get this running animation. But if we press the left or right or bottom, doesn't matter which key we press, the player is always facing up, so we don't want that. So let's see what we can do. So let me just Control B to open up our sidebar. As you can see, we have 4 images: player underscore back, front, left, right. By default, we only have the front image. So if it is up arrow, we are going to say player dot style dot background image. So background image equals to URL, and the URL will be assets / player underscore front. Save it, and we can do the same for all of these if statements. So here Control V. In this case, this will be player underscore back, I think. So player underscore back, and when we press the left arrow, it should be player underscore left, player underscore left. And when we press the right arrow, it should be player underscore right, like so. Save. So now the player is facing forward, now he is facing left side, now he is facing right side, and now he is facing the back side. So it is working, but the speed is not quite enough. So instead of 1, let's try to increase the number. So instead of 1, we can try 3, and I think 3 is much more better. So now what we want to do is, when our player is over our Pokeball, we want to grab this Pokeball, we want to play a sound, we want to remove this Pokeball and generate a new Pokeball. So you'll notice in our generate Pokeball function or create Pokeball function, we're just creating the Pokeballs, nothing else. So now we need to keep track of our Pokeballs also. So we're going to say const balls equals to, by default it will be an empty array, and here we're also going to say balls dot push. So balls dot push, we're adding a new item in our array. We're going to add an object. So here we're going to say ball equals to div. So ball equals to our div that we created, and we also need to keep track of our position, so the x and y position. So instead of just saying style dot left and style dot right, we're going to say let x equals to, so let x equals to this and let y equals to this, and after that we're going to say div.style.left equals to x and div.style.top equals to y. Save it, and everything still works the same, but now we can also push our x and our y. So I'm using the shorthand syntax. So if you want, you could have said x colon x and y colon y, but using ex6 we can simply say y and x because this and this name are the same. Okay, now when we move our player, we also want to know if our player is over any Pokeball. So let's see how we can do that. So for that, in our run function, we're also going to create a function called check collision. So check collisions like so. So let's create this function now. And this will loop through our balls array. So we're going to say balls dot for each. We're going to get our ball, and we want to check if our ball is colliding with our div. So how we can do that? Okay, so for that I have found this Stack Overflow page that already have this function that checks if two div is colliding. So we can simply copy this, and again I'm going to leave the finished code in the video description, so you will be able to copy paste it, so don't worry. Now this code here uses jQuery, but we're not using jQuery, so we have to do something. So instead of saying offset left and offset top, we have to change it. So the offset will be changed with get. So get bounding client rect, and this is the function, so you have to call it. So get bounding client rect will give us the top and left position, and instead of outer width, outer height, etc., we are going to use client with client height. So again we are going to select all of this and replace the outer with client, and this is not a function, so we can remove the parentheses and this true. So like so, and this should work. So what we are doing is getting the top and left position of first div. So let me just add a new line here. So we are getting the top and left position our new div. We are also getting the left and right position of them, and after that we are creating a variable that stores the position y and height, and then position x and width. We're doing the same for our div, and then we're using those variables to check if two div is overlapping. If they are, in that case we're returning true. If not, we're returning false. So here we can say if collision. So if we have a collision between ball, so ball is a object and ball.ball will give us the div, because here as you can see we're setting the ball to div. So to get the ball we're saying ball.ball, and then we're going to say our player. So if our player and any of the ball is colliding, in that case for now let's just say alert, you got caught. So let me just run this. Okay, it looks like we have some error. Let me click on inspect. Get bounding client rect, it's not defined because it should be rect not react, and we have to do the same for our second div also. So we can control V, save, and now all the errors are gone. So let's see if it works now. So you can see we can move our player still, and let's try to get the ball, and it says you caught. So when our player was on the Pokeball, it says you caught, so it is working. Okay, so now we don't want an alert, we want to play a sound. So let's see how we can do that. So for that we're going to say const sound equals to new audio. We're creating a new audio object. Let me open my sidebar. As you can see we have this coin.mp3. we want this sound here, so we're going to say assets / coin.mp3. Oh, by the way, use alert instead of console log. That is because since we use alert and our run function is being called again and again, this page is now stuck. So use console log instead of alert. If you use alert, your page will be stuck, and then you have to close it and then open it again. So we again have to say localhost : 5500. So 5500, and here is our page. Okay, and so here we're creating our sound object by saying new audio assets / coin.mp3, save, and whenever we have a collision. Here we can say sound.play. So sound.play, and we can say ball.remove. This will remove our ball. And now we want to create a new ball in place of that ball. So to create a new ball, we again have to run all this code. So instead of using this code again, we can simply create a function for this. So we are going to cut this, and here we can say function generate ball, and simply paste the code that we had. So Ctrl V, and we can fix the indentation a little bit by saying Shift Tab. And here we simply have to call the generate ball function. Save it. Everything works the same. So now here we can simply call the generate ball function to create a new ball. Save. Let's try to refresh a couple of times, and let's try to play our game. As you can see, our Pokeball was removed and we got a new ball generated. So everything is working. Now as a homework, you can try to show a score here. So every time a player gets a ball, score is updated and shown here. But otherwise, that's all for this video. I hope you have enjoyed this. If so, don't forget to check out my channel also. I hope you'll find something interesting there. And of course, like this video also. And I'll see you in the next video, I guess. So see ya.